Monica asked me to come and talk about the book that I just published, which is called Shaping Global Culture Through Screenwriting, Women Who Write Our Worlds. And it is about women who have written things on screen. Sometimes it's a music video, sometimes it's a movie or a TV show that has advocated for changes in their culture or sometimes even their legal standing. And this is all over the world. So I was very excited to do this with a friend of mine, Rose Farrell, who is a colleague and a screenwriting teacher and practitioner in Australia, who I met through one of the conferences I go to, which is the conference we had on Stevens a couple years ago. So whenever I go to a conference, you all know this stuff, but I tell people who I am and where the college is from. And of course, the pictures on the bottom are the studio that we have our MFA program at. So that's something I can tell people about. And I tell them who I am, which is these TV shows are the ones I've written on in the past, including the CW now has a piece on the history of Touched by an Angel where they interviewed me and Ken Lezebnik, who some of you know because he also started the program. So I give them that. I tell them that I am on the editorial boards of these things, where I have had some of our MFA students get their work published, which has made me very happy. And then I'm the chair of the executive council of the SRN, which is why we had the conference at Stevens. And I always tell people to get involved in things like that. I've been publishing books since I got my PhD, I'm going to say 30 years ago, about things that I really enjoy. And you can see they're largely popular culture based. This is the book that we have our MFA students read because it was also written by the very first class of our MFA. They all write research papers on a famous female writer. And in the first class they take, it's on the silent film era when women were the leaders in that world. And so each of them had written such a lovely essay. I convinced the publishing company who had published my Monkeys book that this was also popular culture they should be in charge of, and they published it for us. So that was exciting. So that's kind of one of my favorite ones out of this pack. I'm also clearly a Doctor Who fan, so I'm in a few of those. I also do, from what I learned from teaching this class, I write a column for Script Magazine on famous female writers from this early era, and that's always very fun. It's another place I can get our students involved, and one of our graduates is now writing reviews for Script Magazine online, so that makes me very happy. I also was then invited to edit this series of books called Women Making History. And so the Sally Ride book that just came out was written by one of our MFA graduates, who is also a graduate at MIT and had been in the Navy for 12 years. So she knew a lot about the military world that Sally Ride joined when she became an astronaut. And another friend of mine from a local college has recently published about Dolores Huerta. And we're always looking for more books about other famous women who should have a new biography written about them. So back to this book, which is what we're here to talk about today. The way we laid it out, and I largely give credit to my friend Rose, who is very inclusive and always thinking about how the world is often taught the Western version of all the stories and not the other versions. So she was very adamant that we find a way to include women and stories from all over the world. These are some of the people who have written chapters in the book, and that's really exciting. These women are from Pacifica, and so that was an exciting period. We've got folks from Australia and New Zealand. This is Rose right here from Australia. This gentleman runs an MFA program in Milan. And this gentleman who just got his copy at his college library, Juan Carlos, he is a screenwriting teacher in Mexico City. So it was a wide variety of people who took part. And that's because we put out a call for papers through our association and through other groups online. So what is this book about? It's about how women show their advocacy and the things they care about having to do with the whole world, having to do with the arts, having to do with their personal communities, the environment, and issues around the world, as I said. So that is what we started with. And it was Rose's idea to make sure we covered all areas of the world. So we've arranged the book in worlds, and we try to decide what those worlds should be, not just based on the continents. So an example of a chapter in each of the worlds. And I'm putting these out here because I sent an email a while ago, and I'm totally open to this. The book is far too expensive for an individual to buy, but I have all the PDFs of all the chapters, and I am more than happy to share a chapter or two that you feel would be useful or interesting for one of your classes or one of your students. So these are some samples. In the African worlds, this is a woman who runs a TV show called Recipes for Love and Murder. And it's about neurodiversity in the lead character and how that has been explored on television. So I think that's really, really fascinating. And Karen has come to several conferences, so that's how we got her to be part of it. Then I just mentioned Juan Carlos. This is his chapter, and in American Worlds, Mexico is part of that. And he and his partner, Sebastian, wrote about these two famous Mexican female screenwriters and their work. And then in Asian Worlds, this gentleman is actually English, but he lives in Korea. And he wrote about how this one movie was part of the Me Too movement in Korea. So those are those three things. Then, of course, the English-speaking worlds became Australia and the United States and Europe and England. And so we have a lovely piece on Bluey, which, of course, is the child program that went around the world. And it's about how the female animators, though they don't write the show, are able to inject their ideas about parenthood into the show and how important it is to have the female perspective, obviously, on parenthood. In the European worlds, that included Italy. And this was an amazing piece about a documentary that was produced in the 70s in Italy that covered the trial that a woman went through when she accused someone of rape. And in Italy, that had not been a crime that was often convictable. And in this case, it was, because this woman came forward and accepted being known as a woman who had been raped. And that was a very powerful moment on television in Italy. And then in the Pacific world, in the island worlds, this was a piece by an artist. These are called malus, and these are female tattoos that tell the history of your family. And they used to be things that you hid. But this artist is advocating that women should be just as proud of the tattoos that respect their ancestors as men are who wear them on their chests and such. So that was pretty interesting. So it was an audio visual piece that she put together. Then in Island World, yes, go ahead. Sure. Hi. Sure. No, go for it. Let me know when I can start again. Okay, great. Well, interestingly enough, we pop onto this slide, which is about the island worlds, and it turned out that we didn't have enough people contributing to that section, so I elected to write this chapter, which I am pretty proud of. It was suggested to me by Rose, who was amazed that as an American, as a United States citizen, I had not heard about the campaign for the climate action from the UN. And it's because I hadn't heard of it, and I was kind of embarrassed by that. So I did the research on this wonderful woman, Cynthia Hunahu, who is from the Pacific Islands, and she was a law student who was given a project to find something that they could advocate for. And after they graduated, they continued to advocate for getting the United Nations to come up with a policy on climate action that would involve making it illegal for large countries to have created the climate situations that are destroying their island nations. And she contributed that. She now speaks all over the world. And one of the things they did, this is a link to it, is they got the #1 pop star on Vanuatu, which is one of the islands that they live on, and her friends to create a music video, which advocated for that. And so the music video was written and created. You can see it online at this piece. So I was very impressed to have learned so much about this in the writing of this piece. And that's kind of what excited me about this project. So that was cool. And this is at the end, after we had already published, they actually won. The United Nations did vote that this was a crime and that we have to find a way to manage that. So it was amazing to have learned all about this and then written about it in our book.